Hi everybody, it's Kay, and today I want to talk to you about this book. It is The Big C by Langston Hughes. I love and adore Langston Hughes. Many of you know that. I have been inspired to write poetry because of Langston Hughes. He was the first Black person I'd ever seen on the cover of a book. When I was in junior high school, I had a poetry project, went to the library, and saw his face looking back at me from the shelves. And when I saw him, I thought, oh my gosh, Black people can write books. I was about 12 or 13 years old when I came to that realization, because every book I'd ever seen before then had been written by a white person. So that's one of the reasons Langston Hughes is so near and dear to my heart. That being said, throughout the years, I've read a lot of his poetry, but I never really took the time to learn more about the man, right? So this memoir was very eye-opening for me. I don't know what I assumed. I thought I knew about Langston, but I really didn't know anything about Langston Hughes before reading this memoir. And I must say that this book was gifted to me by my friend Raymond. He's my co-host on Instagram. We have two shows, Live with Ray and Kay and the Black Reader Experience. So thank you, Raymond, for gifting me this book. And there's another young lady who gifted me his other memoir, I Wonder as I Wander. And I hope to read that one maybe later this year. But anyway, let me get into The Big C. Oh, child, I did not know that Langston spent so much of his life poor and hungry. That is a recurring theme throughout this book. From the time he was a child, even up through the time that he started to become recognized for his poetry. He didn't have any money. Langston was always hungry, always looking for means to survive. As a young boy, he lived with his mom and other family, and eventually as a teenager he went to Mexico to live with his dad. His dad was a very strict disciplinarian, and he was all about money and numbers, and he tried to teach Langston, but Langston's head was in the clouds. He's creative. He's an artist. He didn't care about any of that stuff, right? But there are a lot of things that went on down in Mexico that were heartbreaking for me, reading about some of the things Langston had to endure with his father. The two of them were oil and water for real. When he was with his mom, but at least he got to eat. He got to eat when he was with his dad, but when he was with his mom, he was always hungry. She was nomadic, always moving around, always looking for work, never had enough money to really take care of them. And even though she was married, her husband really didn't seem to be a great provider, and they were off and on for so many years. So Langston took it upon himself in many cases to do what he needed to do to take care of himself and his mother and his little brother. He traveled a lot. He got a job working on a ship. And in his travels, he goes to different continents and countries and has these crazy adventures there. It seemed like trouble followed Langston wherever he went. Like, it seemed like every time he would get 2 steps ahead, he would get knocked back again. And in the midst of all this, he's learning how to write. So it's crazy. Some of the things that went on the ship, off the ship, in these different countries. He did meet a woman named Mary. He seemed to be very, very fond of her. He seemed to love her, but he doesn't really write about them having an extraordinary romance. I feel that if he was ever going to marry a woman, it would have been her, but that didn't happen. There's also been debate about whether or not he enjoyed the company of men, let's say, Alain Locke in particular. And the way Langston writes about his encounters with Dr. Locke, he seemed to admire him in a sense, but he wasn't real fond of him. You know, at one point he even like tries to hide from him. I don't think he liked that man. I think Dr. Locke really wanted Langston, and Langston's like, you know, we can hang out, but I don't want to be in no relationship with you. So I'm kind of glad that he did not go into details about who he loved and who he liked and all his trysts and things like that. Thank you, Langston, for keeping your business to yourself. Let these people speculate all they want to. Okay? Let them speculate. But he talks about how he actually was really discovered, even though he'd written poems and they were published in the Crisis magazine and in other places. He really didn't achieve a lot of acknowledgement until there was a particular poet, and I know I should have marked the page, or did I? Where he came into the restaurant where Langston was working as a busboy. Langston sat down and wrote out his poems, went by the man's table, put his poems down on the table and walked off. And then the next morning when he's reading the newspaper, it talks about how this man has discovered the next great Black poet or what have you. And so Langston was able to take a picture, have it in the newspaper, and things started to look up for him from there, only for it to be knocked back down again, child. There's so many things. I don't want to get into a lot of it because I want you to read the book. He does talk about his falling out with Zora, and his perspective is written in a very different manner than she wrote it in her accounts of what happened between them. Zora was a lot more aggressive about it than Langston was. He was heartbroken that their friendship ended, where Zora, I think, was more mad and angry about them falling out. Y'all have to read the book Mulebone by Zora, and you have to read Dust Tracks on a Road by Zora. Just very different accounts. Langston's account is a lot more subdued, I would say, than Zora's is. But this book kind of ends off where he is just starting to make a little bit of money as a poet. His name is really just starting to get out there. He's still hungry, still not eating, but he's making it. And so that's why I'm looking forward to reading the next book, because the next one kind of picks up where this one leaves off. And I think the next one is when he really gets into his groove as a poet and can actually start earning a living by writing, instead of being a busboy, instead of being a sailor and doing all the different things that he had to do just to make ends meet, just to have a place to lay his head at night, just to survive. If I learned nothing else about Langston from this book, is that he is a survivor. So there you have it, The Big C by Langston Hughes. It's not that long. It took me a while to get through it because y'all know me in nonfiction, but it was a really good read. And I suggest if you want to learn more about the man, read the book. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye-bye.